Hey everyone, real quick, I want to talk about Chilling, the awesome Scary Stories app I'm partnered with. In case you haven't heard, every week I have new stories released over on Chilling. There's now over 1,000 stories on Chilling, with a bunch of other YouTube narrators and professionals to choose from. On Chilling, you can do the things that you'll never be able to do on YouTube. Choose from over 1,000 individual stories that are sorted into curated playlists, or you can create your own. On Chilling, we give you so much flexibility to listen the way you want. This includes a chilling, game-changing feature, our ambient menu. You can change the background sounds of the story at any time to fit your mood. Go from rain to a campfire with the press of a button. It's totally revolutionary. You need to try it. There have been a number of awesome updates to Chilling, such as the ability to download stories for offline listening, and the new social feature. You can now discuss your favorite stories with other users and friends. We're just getting started. Not only are we adding hours of new content every week, but original video content is also in the works. Chilling is evolving into a must-have for all horror lovers. Please go start your free trial over on Chilling, and check out my personal playlist there. Click the link in the description to download and check it out. This story takes place about a year ago. I went to my best friend's house and was there until late at night hanging out. We would hang out at each other's houses late at night all the time. We were like sisters. On this particular night, at about midnight, I got tired and decided to drive back to my house, which was only about 1.5 miles away. We lived in basically the same neighborhood, which was a very populated area with many houses and quiet streets in a several-mile radius. I left my friend's house, backed out of her driveway, and began to drive slowly down the quiet streets back to my place. But almost immediately after I started driving down the street, I saw that in my rearview mirror, a man was jogging on the sidewalk. This was a little strange for it being midnight, and I noticed that the guy jogging was going at such a fast speed that he was approaching my car. I was only going maybe 10 or 15 miles per hour, so I sped up, but I soon had to stop at a stop sign. As I slowed down, I saw the man had now gone off the sidewalk and was approaching my car, running. It seemed really surprising to me, and I drove off from the stop sign maybe 10 feet before the man had reached my car. It really looked to me like he was running straight for me. I didn't know what he could have possibly wanted with me, but I was glad I drove away. After I did, I saw the man run back onto the sidewalk. I kept driving slowly down the street, as the speed limit was 20 miles per hour, and there were a handful of cars parked on the side of the road. I came to another stop sign and continued on. I didn't see the man anymore and thought that he was long gone. But then, I stopped at another stop sign a short time later, and as I was slowing down, I saw the man appear again. He was on the sidewalk and had been blocked by a line of trees between the sidewalk and the street. He was running again and veered out into the street and ran towards my car one more time. It caught me by surprise, and I sped away from the stop sign just about as he reached my car. This time, he probably got within 5 feet of it. The guy was really creeping me out, and I knew he was trying to get at my car for some reason. The rest of the way home, I made sure to drive faster than I had been. All I really had to do to get home was turn left, then drive a ways before I would be on my street. The total drive was maybe 5 minutes. I didn't see the man for the rest of the drive, and once I had reached my house, I pulled into the driveway. After I had stopped my car, I started unbuckling and turned it off. I opened the door and got outside, but then I saw the man again. This time, he was coming out from behind a tree that was in my next-door neighbor's yard. He was headed straight for me once again. I quickly ran back inside my car, locked the doors, and started the engine again. The man got all the way to my driver's door and even tried opening it before I backed out of the driveway and sped away. I drove away so fast there was no way he could catch up with me this time. I called the police once I was sort of far away, and then drove around until they reached my house. Then I went back. Obviously, the man was long gone by then, and all I could really do was give the police his description. After the police left, I went back to my friend's house and spent the night there. I did return to my place the next night, and I'm happy to say I never saw the man again. I was driving home from work one night around 9 p.m. It was the middle of the week, so the roads were pretty quiet. As I was driving, I was going downhill, and I suddenly heard a noise that sounded like a jet engine roaring behind me. The next thing I knew, a car went flying past me at least twice the speed limit. It looked like a fairly old and crappy car from what I saw. The car then started to wobble around, and then one of the tires came flying off and rolled at speeds downhill while the car spun out and crashed. It looked pretty bad, and once I got to where the car had crashed, I stopped my car to make sure that whoever was inside was okay. After I had parked, I looked to see that there was a man getting out of the car that had crashed. He got out and looked over at me. Then he started moving extremely quickly in my direction. I don't know why, but I hit my internal locks on the car. This was fortunate for me, because no more than 2 seconds later, the guy started grabbing at my driver's side door and smashing on my windscreen with his fists, trying to get in. I'll never forget the crazy look he had in his eyes. I put my foot down on the accelerator and drove off, headed back to home. After I had gotten back home, I decided to go back and see what had happened. When I arrived, I saw 2 fire trucks and about 4 police close to where the incident took place. They looked like they had it under control, and the guy was no longer there, so I decided to head home. The next day at work, I was bored and online reading the news when I saw an article that shocked me. The article was about a guy who had been in a police chase for an hour, and the police stopped chasing him because it was becoming too dangerous. Turns out, the guy was high on meth, had stolen a car an hour's drive away, and had been in a hot pursuit since. After crashing the car, the guy apparently crossed to the other side of the road and hailed the first car that appeared, which was a taxi. He got into the taxi and stole it. In the process, he pushed the driver out of the driver's side door, and the driver got stuck and dragged at speeds. The driver ended up dying from the incident. I called the police after this and had a detective assigned to me. He fingerprint checked my car and got a statement. I ended up having to testify in court, and the guy ended up getting 30 years for it. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from the store, sort of late at night. I lived a little bit out in the country, not a lot though, but enough so that the closest grocery stores and restaurants were about 10 minutes away. After shopping at 2 different stores and getting groceries, I left to go home. Everything was fine and normal until about 5 minutes into the drive when I was about halfway home. I was driving on a quieter road and not many other cars were around, but I suddenly noticed that a car was behind me and it kept driving closer to me until it was right up on my bumper. The speed limit on that particular road was 55 miles per hour, and I was going almost 60. The car could go into the other lane to pass me if he wanted, because there were no other cars coming in that direction, but he didn't do that. Instead, he just followed me at an extremely close speed. I knew he had been driving behind me for a time at a distance because I remember seeing the headlights, but I had no idea how long exactly he had been behind me because I hadn't really been paying attention. I just really noticed when he started to drive super close to me. All I could tell was the car looked like a regular average car, similar to the one I had. I couldn't see who was driving or anything like that because of how dark it was. I sped up a little bit, and so did the car behind me. Eventually, I had to turn, and I got into the turn lane. I was hoping this would be the end of the guy following me, and I thought maybe it was just an impatient driver, but then they got into the turn lane as well. The car then followed me down the next road, and I decided to turn onto a random quiet road. They did the same thing, and after that, I circled the road onto another one leading back to the busier road I had been on. I was followed the entire time. That's when I got a pretty good idea that I was being tailed. I had no idea why somebody would do this though. I didn't think I had cut anybody off or done anything wrong. There really hadn't been much cars out on the roads that night either. I decided that I would drive to the police station, which is something I had heard to do if you're being followed. I got out my phone and put in police station on the maps. I saw the closest one and got directions to go there. It took me maybe 5 to 10 more minutes to get there, and I was followed the entire time. Finally, I pulled into the police station parking lot. The car behind me put its turn signal on to follow me in, but instead turned it off at the last second and kept going. I was relieved to see this, and I waited in the parking lot for a good 5 minutes before I decided to leave. I was very careful going home, even taking a long way to get there, and made sure I wasn't being tailed or anything. I was finally able to make it back to the quiet street that I lived on, but when I made it to my driveway, I suddenly realized that there was a car already parked in the driveway with the lights off. It certainly wasn't my car, and it looked like the same one that had been following me. Suddenly, I was freaking out, and I didn't even turn into the driveway. Instead, I drove down the street, turned around in a neighbor's driveway, and then drove away. As I passed back by my driveway for the second time, I noticed the car's lights suddenly turn on. I really didn't want to be followed again, and I sped away, turning immediately out of my street onto a busier road. I was able to leave and make a few quick turns, and did not notice the car following me. I went right back to the police station that I had been at before, and this time I went inside, talking to an officer about what was going on. I ended up driving back home with an officer following me in his car. When I got back home, the car that was in my driveway was now gone. I was told if I saw it return or saw anything strange at all, to give them a call, but after that, I never did. I always wonder to this day who that was and how they knew where I lived.